Hey folks, Turbine Guy coming back at you. Today we're going to talk about the lawsuit I just filed Friday, a couple of days ago, in federal court in regards to Orono and their climate denying antics and tactics over the last decade. Now, as you can see right above me here, we have a micro wind turbine. One of the evil things Orono does not want to allow, but which I say they have to. But not just me, state statute says so, and so does an order from Judge Bush out of Hennepin County that Orono never chose to appeal. We'll dive into all of that at some point. But today's topic are who are the parties and what are the counts or the claims I'm making in this case. One thing I want to be fully clear about before we dive into that, I wrote this lawsuit. I took a month, I researched, I took my decade-long compiled evidence I had, I've got a trunk of it over here, and I whittled down the thousands and thousands of documents I had. And I whittled it down to this, right here. I don't know, 500 plus pages, tons of evidence, 120 some pages of the complaint right here. Parties, of course, me, plaintiff J. Thomas Nygaard, individual person who resides in Orono, Minnesota. I've been here since 1996. Defendant Dennis Saber and Walsh, current resident of Orono, Minnesota, and current mayor for Orono, Minnesota, in his individual and official capacities. Defendant Jared Shepard, lawyer for Orono, individual official capacities. Defendant Soren Maddock, lawyer for Orono. Defendant Campbell Knutson, PA, represents the city of Orono. That is a law firm that Maddock and Shepard currently work for, and a law firm I definitely have some problems with because their lawyers, as we are going to see as we dig through this lawsuit, don't necessarily play fair. Defendant Corey Farniak, Chief of Police for Orono, Minnesota, and his individual and official capacities. And I would like to personally thank Chief Farniak for making a police state out of my property all these years. Defendant City of Orono, Minnesota is a municipal corporation and the public employer of defendant officers, defendant public officials, and defendant staff lawyers. Now I have to throw this blurb in at the end to make sure everybody's properly captured. Defendant Officer Chief Farniak, Defendant Official Mayor Dennis Walsh, and Defendant Staff Lawyer Soren Maddock and Jared Shepard were at all times relevant to this complaint, duly appointed and acting officers, public officials, and agents of the city of Orono, acting under the color of law, to wit, under the color of statutes, ordinances, regulations, policies, customs, and usages of the state of Minnesota and or the city of Orono. So there we have all the defendants. Walsh, but Walsh is actually a double defendant because I have called him out in his public capacity and his official capacity, if you see right on the front page here. On to the counts. Count 1, illegal anti-green ordinance, which is the illegal alternative energy ordinance in Orono that outright bans SWEC's small wind energy conversion systems in 90% of the city against state statute and Judge Bush's order, as we discussed. And they have other requirements in there that further limit it, where basically wind turbines are banned in Orono. Let's just say that. Call it a de facto ban. Now, for the other counts, I don't have any of the other sections broken out, but I thought it was really important in this part to break out what's going on. The first thing I have to talk about is race judicata and collateral estoppel arising from Judge Bush's decision. And the fact that Orono has never honored that obligation, that duty and honor they have to admit they lost in court and that I do have a right to a turbine. Because they have repeatedly, even though I won that, they've repeatedly argued that because they wrote an illegal ordinance, I don't have a right to have one. Which meant I have to sue the city a second time to win my right again. Which is what I'm doing here. Not just my right, everybody's right. Orono Code 181379 violates Minnesota policy, statute and incentives, federal policy, statutes and incentives, international agreements, and common sense as the countries of the world gear up to combat the climate crisis. And then the third subsection, punitive damages appropriate due to Orono's intentional violation of state statutes and Judge Bush's order, and the negligent harm to all the peoples and critters of the earth caused by Orono's intentional and malicious actions to outlaw micro-wind illegally in Orono. I added that little on the end. Count 2 is a RICO conspiracy. Now, that was written, from what I understand, years ago because of the mafia and racketeering, and how maybe the boss didn't know what was happening down here, but the boss still kind of ordered it. So they wrote it in such a way that not everybody has to know what's going on. It just has to be several parts of this conspiracy, and it fits right into that RICO thing. And it's going to be fun when we go through the RICO part of this complaint, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Count 3, First Amendment retaliation, which is going to be blatantly obvious as we go through this because, hey, I'm the Turbine guy, and I have been advocating for micro-wind in Orono, and all I've been is punished. Wait till you see the timeline. Oh, the RICO timeline is going to show you so much. Count 4, Fourth Amendment violation. That has to do with illegal search and seizure. And I'm not talking search. I'm talking seizure, where I was illegally left in jail beyond clearance of my contempt, illegally and intentionally. 14th Amendment violations. That has a lot to do with due process. And, you know, like, are they following the rules? When you go to court, do you give all the evidence and stuff like that? And I've just got numerous due process violations in criminal, civil court, and up in city administration that you just we're going to shake our head over. There's also a part of the 14th Amendment where you can be classified as a class of 1. And you can't be discriminated against. That's part of the 14th Amendment is anti-discrimination. And if you are a class of 1, you can fit under that. Well, uno. I am 1. And I have definitely been singled out and selected. So we're going to have fun going through the 14th Amendment stuff. Monell violations. Now, many people don't know and understand what this is, but this has to do... it's not quite as bad as the RICO stuff, but it has to do with abusing authority and knowing you're doing it. And we're going to easily prove that happened in this case. And, you know, the key to most of this case is Dennis Walsh and his actions over time that I've been able to document that you're just going to shake your head over. Fraudulent obtained judgment. The last lawsuit we were in, 27 CV 177166, was really a game played on the Minnesota taxpayer by Orono Mayor Walsh to gain $1 million to chase me and my turbines out of town so he could take over my company. It's going to be really fun to go through that judgment and show how ridiculous it was. I mean, my goodness, myself, my wife, and my business were all convicted of 8 ordinances we were never accused of violating, and have an order not to violate these ordinances we were never accused of. And one of the ordinances, I just have to say this, there's a setback ordinance that says you can't violate the setback, but then they wrote another ordinance that said, well, you can if it's a small retaining wall, this or that. We were ordered not to violate the ordinance that says you can violate ordinances. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that to see how I don't violate that. I'm just not sure. I might need some clarification. Tortious interference. That's going to have to do with Mayor Walsh and his interfering with the contract I had with another property owner in Orono who had installed one of my micro wind turbines. Negligence, that's a long one. It really calls out about everybody and just things which violated my rights, due process, and everything else. Defamation and defamation per se. Those are the last 2 counts. When we go through the prayers for relief, there's a couple other things thrown in there too. Like these punitive judgments up there, or punitive damages. So it's going to be real interesting to go through that. So there you have it. Walsh, couple of lawyers, the police chief, the city of Orono against the turbine guy. Turbine guy, signing off.